Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Albertastan.ca podcast. I'm your host, Richard Gordon. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about safe consumption sites. And with me, I have concerned citizen and super activist, Kim Siever from Lethbridge. Kim has written a blog this week on Twitter that caught my attention in regards to what's been happening with the UCP government and the safe consumption sites. So today I'd like to welcome to the show, Kim Siever. Kim, how the hell are you, buddy?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
That's
It's an honor to be here.
Awesome. Excellent. So what I was wondering was if we could just basically have sort of a short synopsis. So on the 21st, you wrote a pretty good rebuttal to some comments regarding the closing of safe consumption sites and how it somehow magically leads to a healthier community. So can you just talk a little bit about what sort of the impetus was for your response to that?
Yeah, so it actually goes back to this past summer. I'm not even sure what it was that initiated it, but I created a Facebook post that just sort of outlined some of the common myths that I've been hearing about the supervised consumption site, and just offered some rebuttals for each one of those myths. I think there were 9 of them, and it sort of went viral. I was actually quite surprised.
Personally.
What's that?
I was super excited personally
to
see something like that get some attention, right? And get some actual traction out there with people.
Sure. And then, I think I had close to 50,000 views or something on it. I can't even remember now. But it showed me that there was a lot of desire for information out there. And so I just started building on that. I started creating content specific to supervised consumption sites. I created some graphics related to those 9 myths. I created a blog post, I created a video, all based on that same information. And I started to repurpose. I already had a Facebook page that I was using for my poetry. And I had a blog that I was using for my poetry, and I sort of repurposed those to as vehicles for getting out information about supervised consumption site and leftist politics in general.
Okay.
And then just the content I built after that ended up almost always being in response to something else I've seen. So it might have been comments by a city councilor in a city council meeting. It might have been a letter to the editor. It might have been a video of a presentation from somebody, or that sort of thing. So whenever I've seen that, I've created a response post to those things. I also I sent a letter off to, there was a panel interviewing people, the general public, about supervised consumption sites and getting feedback. And so I sent off an email to that, and I published the content of that email as a blog post as well. And so really the content that I shared on Twitter this past week was in line with all of that. This past month, there have been 3 letters to the editor to the Lethbridge Herald, which is the main newspaper here in Lethbridge, the main daily newspaper. And there was also, they have a weekly feature in their paper every Monday. They have something called Roast and Toast, where you can just write in and anonymously toast somebody or something, or roast somebody or something. And there were at least half a dozen roasts regarding the supervised consumption site. And so I did a blog post addressing each one of those. And then I did 3 blog posts this week responding to those 3 letters to the editor. And the tweet thread that you're referring to was probably one of those blog posts.
Exactly. So, well, basically, the reason why I think why I picked you to come on my show is because you're just a single individual. You set up, you have a bit of a website where you try to do a lot of the advocate, or do some advocacy for some of the things that you care really deeply about. So obviously, this opiate problem that we're experiencing in the province, it's never been this bad, and it seems to be affecting those communities in southern Alberta disproportionately to the rest of the province. And I don't necessarily know why. I'm not gonna
I can tell you why.
Please, yeah, please do. I mean, again, this is all for our own edification, just trying to find out exactly sort of what.
So the main reason is that we don't have treatment services here, not in any real substantial way. We have a little bit, but nothing to deal with the problem we have here. And as a result, people's addictions aren't being treated. Right. And so that's why it's so huge. In Calgary and Edmonton, even though they have significant problems there, they have lots of treatment services available, lots of treatment spaces available. And so they're able to have less of an issue because they can treat some of that. We can't. Okay. And so that's really our biggest problem here. And people seeing this automatically blame the supervised consumption site, when in reality, the problem is, one of the problems is, lack of treatment services available here in Lethbridge. So, despite the fact that our city council has been petitioning the provincial government for a long time for treatment service, and we haven't received anything.
Yeah, and now it just seems that their MO is to make it even more difficult. So can you kind of take us through sort of what the UCP government's sort of tact has been on this particular issue? Is it just a matter of, if we ignore it, hopefully these guys will just go away in time?
Well, I'm actually not quite sure. All that we've seen so far is that there's been a panel that was established months ago, and they still haven't released the report. They stopped collecting data a long time ago, weeks ago. So I'm not sure how long it takes to compile that information. The only other thing is that they have promised a certain amount of money for treatment services. I can't recall how much it is, but then they did a announcement earlier in February. I can't remember how much it was. Oh yeah, so last September they announced that they were going to have 4,000 funding for 4,000 addictions treatment spaces, which isn't going to be anywhere near enough. But of the ones, my understanding is, of the ones that have been announced so far, it's all gone to abstinence-based programs. So my understanding of it is that in order to access those treatment services, you already have to be abstaining from drugs, which is problematic, right?
Yeah, because it is.
Somehow you have to get off your addiction before you go into the abstinence-based program.
And so, basically this is like typical conservative bootstrap mentality. Before we're going to give you a hand, you have to do most of the heavy lifting, right? Well, we know that that's pretty much impossible for a lot of people who are trapped in those addictions. So, also, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it are we having a lot of the funding going towards specific types of groups for this abstinence-based?
So what I have been able to determine this far, but I haven't been able to find any concrete proof, but it seems to be that the organizations who are receiving the funding up to this point are religious-based institutions.
Okay.
But their websites are pretty quiet on that aspect. They kind of tone down the religious rhetoric on their website, so it's really difficult on the surface to be able to see that. But based on the things I've been able to determine from talking to other people, this is what seems to be the case.
So I guess that, we kind of laid it out, sort of where the major issues are in terms of not much support and not much help for addicts down there. Is there anything else you kind of wanted to add, that you think is, detrimental to this particular conversation? I mean, obviously we need to keep talking about it. That's one of the reasons why I invited you on the show today, was to kind of get this out here. But it seems to me that there's a lot of sympathy for people in these particular situations. And I'm just kind of, I guess, what would you like to see in terms of an income? Like, are we having the right dialogue with anybody in government over this issue? Are we seeing any willingness by the government to work and understand on this, or are they just taking a pretty serious hard line that safe consumption sites just don't work and they're going to put their fingers in their ears and just ignore all the evidence?
I don't think there's been anything concrete communicated by the current government, or at least the UCP side of the government, because the government's more than just the UCP. I don't think there's anything concrete that's been communicated, at least to Lethbridge, that they are going to protect the supervised consumption site. Based on the things I've read, it seems as if they are keeping it open to shutting it down, keeping the option open to shutting it down. I don't want to see that. I think that we still need a supervised consumption site. Never mind the fact that they provide 16 other services other than supervised consumption. But that needs to be part of the solution. We also need treatment services. And I think that is one of the things that is sorely lacking in the rhetoric around the supervised consumption site, is there are far too many people complaining about the supervised consumption site and insisting that it be shut down, and far few people asking for more treatment services. I think the amount of energy that is being spent into trying to get the supervised consumption sites down, complaining on social media in the comment sections about the supervised consumption site, tying crime to the supervised consumption site, that energy could be spent in petitioning the provincial government for funding for treatment services. And it's not be done because everybody would rather focus on a scapegoat than focus on real solutions that could actually make a difference.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen this rhetoric and doctrine before from them. It seems to me that they just keep choosing this social conservative ideology over logic and facts at almost every turn. So I just wanted to thank you for a lot of that, and for being an advocate in the online community here in Alberta. I think it's really important that we give a voice to that. Especially for the amount of pain that it's causing everyday Albertans and the cost it is to families. One other thing I wanted to talk about that I thought was really interesting and super got my attention was this list that you came up with and published on Twitter of all of the sort of peripheral staff in the government or in Kenny's office. So to anybody who doesn't necessarily know what I'm talking about, later, I think last week, Kim, you were able to do some research. You did some digging and found the contract amounts for some of the executive assistants, speech writers, caucus affairs people, and really kind of laid out a list of how much, pretty much what their annual salaries are, and that in an attempt to sort of draw attention to this whole hypocrisy around reducing red tape and administration costs in this particular government. So can you kind of just sort of take us through the steps, like sort of what got you thinking about this? How did you go about finding these numbers and putting it together? Again, this was just like another tweet that just sort of caught on fire, and
it did, yeah.
Sort of went with it. And I think a lot of people really appreciated the work that you did and went into that. If you could talk about that, it'd be great.
Sure, yeah. So it was last Monday was when I did the tweet, and I don't recall exactly what it was that prompted me to put that data together, but I think I saw something somebody else had said that sort of gave me the idea of putting it together. And yeah, it was quite popular. It received 547 retweets. 734 likes. I got 183 comments on it, and a total number of engagements of over 16,000. So that's retweets, comments, clicks.
Yeah. People looking at it, just reading it.
Yeah. So it was my most popular tweet by far, I believe. Sorry. No, that's not true. I did have one more that was more popular last May. So this is my second most popular tweet that I've ever put out.
And so how did you actually, sorry to interrupt, just how did you go about putting the data?
Yeah, so that's what I was just about to say. So to talk what you had said earlier, so what I did is they don't have this information laid out pretty easily. And so I had to, but what they did have is they have all the contracts of all their sunshine list, basically. It's not called sunshine list, but you have to go through it. They have the contracts for all the people who make $100,000
or more.
A year, all of them.
Yeah.
All of those people in all the public departments, ministries, the premier's office. And so I just went through all the contracts for all the premier's office, sorry. And I just browsed through each one of the contracts, found it's actually their bi-weekly salary. I poured that all into a spreadsheet, and I obviously times it by 26 to get the annual salary, and then divided that by 12 to get the monthly salary, and then took out the names, and then, copied it or did a screenshot and posted it onto Twitter.
Well, we see in comparison to, like, I mean, I don't know if you had a chance to look at the numbers, but in comparison to the NDP's size of their administration, do we know like how this ranks in comparison to this? Is this?
Yeah, I totally do. So they had a total annual salary, the amount that they would put out, the UCP, every to put out, haven't been in for a full year yet. And these contracts are, I believe, starting this past September. So nearly $3 million, $958,614.30 is how much in salaries for all of these people, 19 people. The NDP, so that was nearly 3 million. The NDP was paying out $2,137,503.42 for 20 staff, but that includes people, all of Notley's staff, no matter how much they made. Everybody, 100,000 and under 100,000. She had 9 staff members who were making under $100,000 a year, and then a couple who just barely over 100,000.
Yeah,
nine staff. So she basically, we were paying out less for more staff than what we're paying out to Jason Kenney. So we were paying out less for her 19 or her 20, that's entire staff, than Jason Kenney is paying out for his 19 most expensive staff.
Yeah.
And on a population basis, so I compared this to the population, 52 cents per capita, 52 cents. For Jason Kenney, we're paying 68 cents per capita. So we're paying 20% more under Jason Kenney for 19 people than we were for Notley under 20 people. And get this, Ontario, they have only 4 more people on their sunshine list than Jason Kenney does. He has 19, they have 24, or 5 more people, sorry. He has 19, they have 24. And we're paying twice as much per capita than they are.
Yeah, that's just insane. And so has there been any offered reasoning for this? I mean,
yeah, the only thing they say is
go ahead.
The only thing they're saying is that, and these are mostly supporters, they're saying that, well, you get what you pay for. This is higher quality. We had to clean up under all the mess that Notley left behind. And when you press them on it, they have nothing. It's like, well, what mess are you referring to? What skills do these specific positions have that weren't available under Notley? How much more qualified are these individuals more than Notley's staff? And they have nothing to provide. I actually had Matt, what's his name? The issues management person for
Matt Wolf.
Wolf, that's it. I actually had Matt Wolf respond, and he responded with a link to a news article that was quoting him. stating that they were spending less for all of the staff for the Premier's office and the ministries than we're spending under the NDP. But that's their first year to the NDP's last year. And there's no data for, when you ask them for the data, they don't provide it.
No.
And when I forgot my train of thought.
That's all right.
Yeah, when I compared Notley's staff to Kenny's staff, it's for first year to first year, because I thought that was the fairest way. Because Kenny's spending is probably going to go up in the next 3 years, right? And Notley's spending probably went up as well. So she probably spent more her final year for her staff than in the first year, because there were probably raises, there might have been more staff, that sort of thing. So I thought it was fair to do first year to first year.
Right.
But yeah, so yeah, he quoted me, and then when I pressed him on it, he didn't respond. That's the first time that Matt Wolf has ever responded to anything I posted. And I tag Jason Kenney in my stuff every day.
Yeah, so, this is typical of what I sort of talk about on the show a lot, and that is that, a lot of this is them trying to generate a specific narrative, right? And individuals such as Matt Wolf, without going too far into the rabbit hole on that transplant from Ontario, but, his job primarily is setting up these narratives and trying to spin things in a way that makes it look like things aren't necessarily their fault. And we see this time and time again. I think almost every interaction I've ever had with Matt Wolf online has been completely disingenuous. And his high ground generally tends to be a giant pile of shit.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, everything is the NDP's fault or the Liberals' fault.
That's right. And there doesn't seem to be much in the way of accountability for any of this stuff. And it seems to me that in a lot of ways, especially I know this week we haven't really touched on it too much, but talking about the cancellation of the Alberta Medical Association contract, all the disingenuous dialogue that's been going on online back and forth. I mean, we really are kind of at war with this consultant class in the province, these guys that are sort of in the business of staying in business. Thanks a lot for coming on the show today, Kim. I really appreciate it. You yourself, you have a website. I would like to draw some attention to that. If you wouldn't mind telling us, that's kim.siever, SIEVER /
No, it's siever.ca/Kim.
Okay, so I'll edit that out. That's good. I'd like to see some more stuff come your way. You write a blog approximately once a week, and you're pretty heavily involved in some of these issues and advocacy.
At the moment, I'm writing at least 2 blog posts a week.
Well, that's good. I'm going to plug it. I'm going to keep an eye on you, and hopefully I could talk to you next week. If you have anything you ever want to talk about, or if anybody has anything they ever want to talk to us about here at albertastan.ca, please send us an email at whatsyourdeal@albertastan.ca. Visit the show and the podcast at www.albertastan.ca. Kim, thanks a lot so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I know we had some couple of hiccups trying to get the tech worked out, but and I'd also like to personally thank Markham Hislop from Energy Media for kind of getting me out of the mud on that. Kim, I look forward to talking to you again. Thank you so much for your time, and have yourself a great day.
Yeah, my pleasure. I sincerely appreciate you having me on.
Excellent. Well, we will again. I guarantee you we're going to do more of this stuff, and we're just going to try to take it and do what we can and rebuttal this craziness one issue at a time.